Hey guys, we are live in the sailboat today. We are going to be reading Holding Your Family Together. 5 simple steps to help bring your family closer to God and each other. And we're going to be doing step 1, share highs and lows today. Where can I go from your spirit? Or where can I flee from your presence? If I ascend to heaven, you are there. If I make my bed in Sheol, you are there. Psalm 139, verse 7 to 8. The first step toward holding your family together may be the easiest of all. If you can, but make the time. Step 1 involves simply taking turns sharing your highs and lows at the close of the day. Some call these pows and wows. President Barack and Michelle Obama call them roses and thorns. I even have a high-churned church pastor friend who calls them glorias and kyries. Praise be and Lord have mercy. Whatever you call them, model this step for your children by sharing your highs and lows. A Faith 5 family story. Laura Worthington was asleep when her husband Matt, a 6'4" 280-pound police officer suffering from bipolar disorder, slit her throat and then walked out to the back porch and shot himself. Everyone was stunned and shocked by the terrible power of the disease and the sad days that followed. My good friend, Pastor Scott Ness, had spoken with Matt a number of times before the incident about how much he loved his 2 little girls. Laura, who loved her husband deeply, survived the attack and started counseling immediately, but she knew her daughters needed help as well. You can't cave, said Laura, who is now a woman's self-defense teacher. You can't wallow in self-pity. You can't let things consume you. When everything happened with me, I just thought I've got 2 little girls to deal with. Laura has come to see an application of Faith 5 as a dose of nightly therapy for her girls. My oldest has a constant low, which is Daddy passed away. At first, especially when it was new, she would get emotional and start to cry. So I would try to bring the positive out of it by saying, okay, but think of all the good things you've got. Now that positive input is part of our nightly routine. That's bedtime. That's what we do. My youngest is just now getting into it at 4. It teaches my daughters to be thankful for the good and helps them realize every day isn't perfect, but that's life. Laura ends each night by tracing a cross on her daughters' foreheads. A few weeks into this, her oldest started blessing her back with a new twist. She now follows the cross symbol every night with the tracing of a heart. Okay, there's no AC, and I was just informed that I'm not getting electricity until possibly next Thursday at the latest, tomorrow at the earliest. So I am sweating like a dog. Like, it's just dripping down. So just ignore it while I read. Okay. You got to open the kid before you open the book. Melheim maxim number 1-3. Laura ends each night by tracing a cross on her daughters' foreheads. A few weeks into this, her oldest started blessing her back with a new twist. She now follows the cross symbol every night with the tracing of a heart. Part 1, sharing highs. Mr. Capote's advice. You have to set the stage before you raise the curtain. You have to till the soil before you plant the seed. Sharing a high opens the conversation by opening the kid. It also opens communication, hearts, attitudes, and doors. But how can you get children into the practice of looking for the good in each day? How can you get them to begin their nightly check-in with a positive memory? This is disgusting, guys. I need like a paper towel or something. It's just dripping down. Dripping down, guys. Ugh. Okay. So gross. Okay. The table. It's everywhere. Okay. Okay, it also opens communication, hearts, attitudes, and doors. But how can you get children into the practice of looking for the good in each day? How can you get them to begin their nightly check-in with a positive memory? When I was a college student, I volunteered to help run a writers' conference where the Pulitzer Prize-winning author Truman Capote was keynoting. Following the event, the president of the university invited students and faculty who helped the conference to reception at his mansion. Excited to meet this strange little man, I cornered Capote in the den by the baby grand piano and asked a question. Mr. Capote, how do you become a writer? I'll never forget his answer. You write. I thought his response was brilliant. I had to run out right away and get a pen to write it down. One learns to dance by dancing. One learns to paint by painting. One learns to shoot skeet by shooting skeet. One learns to share feelings by sharing feelings. One learns to listen by listening. If you want to raise children into resilient adults who know how to handle any situation life can throw at them, you need to raise children who practice by talking through their highs and lows every night. The psychology of sharing highs. Starting the night out on a high sets the stage for an overall positive experience. Sharing highs creates a feeling of well-being, even regarding what might have seemed to your children to be a terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day. Sharing highs validates both the person and the high. Yeah, that was really neat. It models healthy communication, engenders caring, fosters acceptance, and teaches appreciation. Sharing the positive triggers even more positive. Sonia Lyubomirsky, one of the world's leading researchers on happiness, believes that if you want to develop lifelong satisfaction, you need to engage regularly in positive thinking about yourself, share your happiest events with others, and savor every positive experience in your life. Perry plus perspective. Perry plus perspective. Starting with a positive high reframes the entire day in a healthy and balanced way. Intentionally and consistently sharing the good first changes your outlook, how you see the world, your in-look, how you see yourself, and your perspective. The word perspective, Perry plus spect, literally means to look around. So look around. Maybe today wasn't all bad. Look around. Maybe there was some good after all. Look around. If nothing else, you are still alive. For some odd reason, these people love you. Look around. There are always flowers for those who want to see them, by Henry Matisse. See what you're looking for. My friend John Lace is an avid hunter and fly fisherman. When we would ride through the countryside, he would often see things. He would often see things. Yep. Yep. I have the 30 amp one, but I don't have just like an extension cord now. I have.
He has one.
Okay.
He talks to himself.
Okay. He would often see things I didn't see. Look, there's a pheasant. Look, there's a bunny. Look, I bet there's a great stream for trout. John was able to find what he wanted to find because he had trained himself to see what he wanted to see. If you are looking for the bad in a situation, a relationship, a job, or a day, you are likely to see it. If you are looking for the good, you are likely to see that too. Most people do. Train your children to look for the blessings in every day. The persistent practice and pursuit of positive perspective is a marvelous gift you can give to your children, yourself, and your great-grandchildren you will never meet. The power of a positive outlook will ripple out like a stone thrown into a pond to bless distant shores. A positive attitude may not solve all your problems, but it will annoy enough people to make it worth the effort. Herm Albright. The sociology of sharing highs. A woman once told me in counseling, I don't like any of my loved ones. I'm guessing there wasn't a lot of joy sharing between them. Sociology, sharing joy, laughter, and the positive events of the days created new bonds and strengthens old ones. Sharing highs enhances both energy and synergy between you and your mates. It helps shed light on the experienced joys of others, turning mates and inmates into intimates. It gives insight as it gives outsight into what other people's highs are. It deepens understanding about what is important to them. It multiplies affirmation as it builds depth into the relationship. Multiplying joy. Some say joy doubles when you share it. I say joy multiplies by the number of people whom you invite in on the sharing. Have you ever gone to a comedy movie alone? Everyone may have praised the film as hilarious, but you watched it alone, and as the credits rolled, you didn't consider it all that funny. However, if you had been with friends, the movie may have been a totally different experience. You would have chuckled and laughed more, ribbed each other, and leaned into each other's joys. into each other's joy. You might have enjoyed the film twice as much or more if only you had shared it with people you already enjoyed. Attention intention. The act of active listening is an acknowledgement that the other person is there and a silent statement that he or she matters to you. The gift of one's complete attention affirms the other person and confirms the value of the relationship. It validates both the giver and the receiver and tells the receiver that he or she is worth being heard. Giving the gift of attention is a wonderful way of showing love, sharing love. It creates confidence. Con plus fidea means with faith, and trust between the sharer and the sharee. One might say it creates share ease between the sharees. A pessimist sees the difficulty in every opportunity, and optimist sees the opportunity in every difficulty. Winston Churchill. Yep.
Yeah, that's all you got right there. That's it. Other ones are on the pumps. See if I got like a small one inside the shop. You have like a 10-footer upstairs or anything like that? Get out all the way or
They're trying to like jerry rig me electricity right now just because I'm not gonna have any for like a week. Okay. Death eaters and joy suckers. Some people suck the joy and life out of the air the moment they enter the room. They live like Eeyore and Winnie the Pooh with a black cloud covering them and everyone they meet. You see them coming and you want to walk the other way. So sad. Their negativity, like cheap perfume, arrives before they do and lingers long after they are gone. Other people make you smile and you shake your head when thinking of them. My friend Jim Kotz is that way. The first time we met, he was 18 and I was a 23-year-old student pastor. He appeared suddenly in my office like Kramer on Seinfeld, sporting a big Cheshire cat grin a mile wide that made me think, I don't know what he's up to, but I want in on it. I am smiling right now just thinking of him. Which kind of person do you want your child to become? A person of joy and smiles or a person of desperate negative frowns? Which do you want your children to see in you? What are you doing tonight to make your home the kind of place your child and their friends want to be around? People are drawn toward others who make them smile, laugh, and enjoy life. So plant positive seeds beginning tonight by sharing your highs, then nurture, weed, and protect those precious seeds as your children grow. In Galatians 6, verse 7, Paul writes, do not be deceived. God is not mocked, for you reap whatever you sow. You reap what you sow. You get what you grow. You will see what you seed. Guaranteed. A man is but the product of his thoughts. What he thinks, he becomes. Mahatma Gandhi. Okay. The neurology of sharing highs. Neurologically, sharing a high triggers a cascade of positive and powerful neurochemical transmitters that bolster immune systems, regulate hormonal systems, improve one's digestive tract, slows down the aging process, and triggers positive electrochemical exchanges throughout the brain and the body. As you recall and relive your highs, a subconscious smile spreads across your face. Your heart may begin to race. Joy and laughter bubble up from inside as an electrical message flows from your brain at 100 yards per second. The memory message speeds down your neurons to the ends of each wire-like cell, where little bags of chemicals are waiting to be released. There, the electrical message changes to a chemical message and jumps across the space between the neurons, synapses, to bond to proteins on the other side. The electrical message changes to a chemical message and then back into an electrical message. In an instant, all through your body flashes an electrical chemical charge that shouts out to every cell, I feel good. What does all this mean? Free drugs. If you teach your children how to dispense the natural highs our Creator built right into their bodies, maybe they won't need to grab the pills, the bottle, or the needle one day when they are feeling down. Marvelous exhaustion. Have you ever laughed so hard you could barely breathe? Afterward, you were exhausted, but you felt great. You know what that feeling was. Free drugs. I once heard a psychologist on Good Morning America say that people ought to stand in front of a mirror every morning and laugh their fool heads off for 2 straight minutes before heading to work or school. Why? Because the human brain cannot distinguish between fake laughter and real laughter. The result is you still get free drugs. Don't believe it? Try this. Stare at a mirror or a friend's face and laugh as hard as you can for 1 solid minute. Ready? Go. 1, 2, 3. Okay. When you are through, take 3 deep cleansing breaths. What happened? You just gave yourself a dose of free drugs. How do you feel? You feel great. Imagine your home if laughter and joy filled it every night. Your family would laugh yourselves to health. You would create children who love the nightly interaction with you and yearn to create similar communities of closeness for themselves and their families the rest of their lives. Imagine a church that shared joys, laughter, and highs like this every week in worship. You could put a sign on the parking lot that said, "Come to the church with 3 drugs." Your attendance would double in a week. Sharing highs is cleansing, cathartic, and beautiful, and it's free. Medicating mama. If you have teens, consider this. By sharing your highs, I just lost it, guys, sorry. By sharing your highs, you can medicate your teenagers every night. In the same way, your teenagers can medicate you by sharing their highs. Some nights, don't you think you need it? The wonderful thing about this natural high is that the moment you finish sharing the positive feeling, those chemicals that gave you the high drain back to the original spot on the other side of the neural channel and are ready to fire again. Not just free drugs, but an unlimited supply. There's a funny thing about parenting teenagers. At about the same time a teen's hormones are kicking in, the parents' hormones are kicking out. God's got a sense of humor. I think we all ought to learn how to self-medicate every night. The theology of sharing highs. The Bible calls us repeatedly to share our joy together. The word rejoice appears more than 200 times in the Bible. Here are a full week's worth of rejoice verses. As you read and consider this list, consider what jumps out to you. Rejoice with those who rejoice. Romans 12, verse 15. You shall rejoice before the Lord your God, you together with your sons and your daughters. Deuteronomy 12, verse 12. Therefore, my heart is glad and my soul rejoices. My body also rests secure. Psalm 16, verse 9. Rejoice in the Lord, O you righteous, and give thanks to his holy name. Psalm 97, verse 12. This is the day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. Psalm 118, verse 24. Rejoice in hope. Be patient in suffering. Persevere in prayer. Romans 12, verse 12. Rejoice in the Lord always. Again, I will say rejoice. Philippians 4, verse 4. Reclaiming and reframing. Sharing a high reclaims, renames, regains, and reframes the day as God's good gift. It teaches that life isn't all bad, and that, in fact, it contains a lot of good. Sharing a high lifts us to an attitude of gratitude and lowers us to a deeper appreciation for the giver of all good gifts. The words raise and praise aren't all that different. Neither are the words rise and prize. Even in the midst of trouble, sharing a high helps us think about and celebrate the good. It reminds us to praise our God from whom all blessings flow. The reformer Martin Luther said the following about the words God and good. We Germans from ancient times call God more elegantly and appropriately than any other language. By that name, from the word God as being an eternal fountain which gushes forth abundantly nothing but what is good, and from which flows forth all that is and is called good. God is good all the time, and sharing highs reminds us of that truth. Sharing them every night, surrounded by people who celebrate with us, plants seeds of gratitude in our midst and in our minds before we go to sleep. It's not just a good and godly way to grow a grateful child, but it's also a great and godly way to grow a grateful adult. Part 2, sharing lows. Creating a sacred space. If you only know your child's highs, then you don't know them. If you only know their lows, then you don't know them. And if they don't know their highs and lows, then they don't know themselves either. Simply asking a child, "How was your day?" is rarely enough to solicit more than a vague one syllable, "Fine." What do you learn? What do you learn when they say fine? Not a lot. As positive, potent, and powerful as it is to start your nightly home huddle with a hi, it may be even more important to build the time, place, and sacred space into your family ritual. What is a sacred space? It is an attitude as much as a place, a moment your children can set aside to invite God into the heart of the matter, feel safe enough to share their lows and work them out. The psychology of sharing lows. Sharing lows gives you a better understanding of yourself and others. Growing up with a format and lifelong experience in verbalizing one's lows aloud within the context of a safe, loving, non-judgmental home every night gives a child a huge advantage when it comes to building capacity for mental health, emotional resilience, and spiritual maturity. The Voldemort effect. There is great power in being able to speak the name of your problems out loud. I call this the Voldemort effect. After the evil being in the Harry Potter series by J.K. Rowling, no one dared speak his name aloud except Harry. So gross, guys. Sorry. He who shall be not named holds a mysterious and sinister grip on everyone, a hidden power, until the Harry Potters of the world decide we are not going to remain silent. We will not cower as captives to fear. We are going to name that sucker out loud. We are going to call him what he is and who he is so that we can deal with the real problem, not the myth. We are going to draw him out into the open and then kill him together or together die trying. A strange and wonderful thing happens the moment you dare speak the name of he who shall not be named aloud. A subtle but significant power transfer begins. The moment the silence is broken, the power starts to drain away from its sinister source and move in the direction of those who dare deal with it. In that moment, if spoken aloud and shared within the confidence of a loving family or a trusted family of friends, the newly transferred power begins to grow, strengthen, and multiply. There in the hands and hearts of the people who love you and want the best for you, a treasure trove of solutions, allies, creativity, and untapped resources suddenly spring to the surface. The Rebel Alliance, the Elves, the Hobbits, the students of Hogwarts, and the Narnians are emboldened as they suddenly see that they have a chance. Okay, too many mixed metaphors. You get the point. As for Lord Voldemort, let's just say leave him unnamed and he grows each day. Name him aloud and he shrinks away. Light, sound, sight, and things that go bump in the night. Another strange and wonderful thing happens the moment the hidden is revealed aloud. When the unspoken problem is finally brought to light, sound, and sight, when the tip of the silver or the source of the scare is finally exposed, the problem will often appear much less formidable than you originally thought. The shadow on the wall may be no monster at all. The things that go bump in the night might be no more of a fright than a cat, a furnace, or a tree branch tapping against the window. It may be that the boogeyman is hiding under your bed, but it may be that he's hiding there because he, too, is afraid. The great and powerful Oz may be nothing more than a frightened little man behind a curtain who is in need of compassion, care, and a balloon ride to Kansas. Or the sinister force may actually be Lord Voldemort, and at this very moment, he quite possibly may be rallying his forces to kill you. Either way, wouldn't you want to know? Better still, wouldn't you want the people who love you to know? Life is pain. Anyone who tells you differently is selling something. Wesley in The Princess Bride. Blisters and slivers. Some pain is like a blister. Leave it alone and it will eventually dry up and fade away. But most pain is like a sliver. It hurts to dig a sliver out, but if you don't get it, then it's going to get you. If you don't get out the the whole sliver, then it will eventually infect you and affect everyone who loves you. If you are so unaware that you don't even know there is a sliver, then it's even worse. You may live life shaming, naming, and blaming everyone else for your own problems, and you'll probably live most of that life alone. I feel your pain. Have you ever tried to love? Yep. Yes. Oh, are you talking? Oh. We can't find another cord. Okay. So we're gonna try to go off that we need the other cord.
What?
Huh?
Still have plenty. Plenty of cords.
I didn't hear you.
Still have plenty of cords. They had the other one. Still have plenty.
Yeah.
Just long. So.
Okay.
You good?
Sounds good. Thanks, guys. Every time they're done with me, they call me back again. Okay, I feel like pain. Have you ever tried to love someone who wouldn't let you into his or her pain? Chances are you found it to be a frustrating experience. It's difficult, if not impossible, to love others in the ways they need to be loved if they can't be honest enough to tell you where and why it hurts. Maybe they don't trust you. Maybe they don't trust themselves. Maybe they know the source of their pain and won't say. Maybe they've been burned before by naming the problem and are afraid you will judge them. You won't love them. You will leave. Or maybe they don't even know the source of the problem themselves. Either way, a relationship gets stuck in cold, empty silence when slivers remain embedded and problems go unnamed. Do you know someone who seems to be fine on the surface but often explodes? They can be going along at a steady emotional pace for a long while, and then suddenly and seemingly out of nowhere, bang, they lose it. That's a sign of someone with a deeply embedded sliver, someone who never learned how to dig it out. Okay, to shrink the shrink. Society is filled with people who haven't had the forum, format, or modeling about how to deal with their problems. We have to pay people to listen to us in this culture. How sad and tragic is that? I'm glad there are caring, trained counselors who can help us dig deep, but wouldn't it be cheaper, better, and more proactive to raise a generation of children who didn't need to bury their problems in the first place? Patient, what can I do to cure my problems? Psychiatrist, nothing, dear. You're not qualified. When it comes to stress-related problems, children are at the most risk. The habits and stress coping mechanisms that parents and caregivers set in place for them early on will follow them the rest of their lives and either bless or curse their world. According to the American Psychological Association's APA survey, stress is taking its toll on the young. Children are hurting. Almost a third of children reported that in the last month they had experienced a physical health symptom often associated with stress, such as headaches, stomach aches, or trouble falling or staying asleep. In addition, parents don't realize their own stress is affecting their kids. While 69% of parents say their stress has only a slight or no impact on their children, just 14% of youth say their parents' stress doesn't bother them. When kids are under stress, she explains, they may eat too much, sleep too much, or favor sedentary coping activities like watching television. The resulting weight gain and the teasing and bullying that often accompany it can lead, in turn, to more stress, creating a cycle that can be difficult to escape from. According to Norman B. Anderson of the APA, 75% of all health care costs are associated with chronic illnesses, and a key driver of chronic illnesses is stress. In fact, the Centers for Disease Control report that more than half of all deaths between the ages of 1 to 65, 1 to 65 result from stress. Another study estimates that 110 million people worldwide lose their lives annually to disease caused by unmanaged stress. Although the United States accounts for only 5% of the world's population, we consume 33% of all anti-anxiety pills. Stress can be directly linked to all 6 leading causes of death: heart disease, cancer, lung disease, accidents, cirrhosis of the liver, and suicide. A good shrink can help you to shrink your problems, but why not teach your children how to shrink their own problems while they're young enough and the problems are small enough to be self-shrunk? Hey, I'm cheap, but wouldn't it save a whole lot of time, grief, pills, and money? Some say light is the best disinfectant. I'd argue that sound is a pretty great disinfectant as well. Giving your children the gift of your time, complete attention, and care, along with the practice of sharing their hurts, fears, and concerns out loud each night, is a beautiful and powerful step on the road to mental and emotional health. Mr. Magoo's Christmas. Back in the days when all my family owned was a black and white television, I remember watching Mr. Magoo playing Ebenezer Scrooge in a cartoon version of Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol. Dickens described Scrooge as being lonely as an oyster In one memorable scene, old Scrooge flew back to his childhood with the ghosts of Christmas past. They peered into a one-room school where Ebenezer was surprised to spot himself sitting in a corner wearing a dunce cap, singing, "I'll never forget the scene or the sun." A hand for each hand was planned for the world. Why don't my fingers reach? Millions of grains of sand in the world. Why such a lonely beach? Where is a voice to answer my back? Where are two shoes that click to my clack? I'm all alone in the world. That was 50 years ago, and I still remember the tune. I also remember thinking, no wonder he was such a Scrooge. He grew up feeling all alone in the world. As a young father blessed with 2 babies, I made a promise to myself and God. I refuse to let my children grow up thinking daddy doesn't have time for them, mommy doesn't have time for them, or that they are all alone in the world. In an era of texting, Facebook, email, IM, and cell phones, sharing highs and lows is a face-to-face incarnational embodiment of God's love and care. People feel loved when they feel heard. We can love them through their problems. Tim Seitz Brown. The sociology of sharing lows. Sharing a low with the people you love minimizes the pain. It does so not by minimizing the problem, but by taking it off your shoulders and placing it into the arms of those who love and trust you the most. Everyone you let in is on your team. Everyone in the know who loves you now has antenna up, searching for solutions. Everyone who cares is now praying to see answers and working to be the answers to the prayers. Everyone has your back. Sharing a low breaks down lonely walls. It gives you security, fosters vulnerability, and builds a deeper bond than simply sharing a high. It creates an awareness of what is going on in your own inner life and in the inner lives of others. It draws out deep compassion, builds stronger connections, and creates more resilient communities. It allows those you allow inside to know and love you in the ways you yearn to be known and loved. It also allows them to enter creatively, yet more objectively, into your situation, your pain, and your prayers. The sharing and the caring that surround the hurt open up the possibility for confession, absolution, forgiveness, and reconciliation. Burning on entry. The space shuttle was built with ceramic tiles designed to spread the heat of re-entry nose to tail across the entire body of the craft. Without such a design, the heat on the nose of the vehicle would have been so intense that the craft might have exploded. With the heat spread out, however, the danger was manageable. You, likewise, have the chance to model and teach your children how to survive even the hottest challenges. Sharing lows with those you love is like spreading the heat around. It's still hot. It still hurts. It's still potentially dangerous, but it's all the more manageable when you are not trying to handle it all alone. We get better together. We don't get better alone. Rick Warren. Cutting the lows in fractions. Some say sharing a low cuts the low in half. I say it cuts into fractions. Depending on how many other people know the low, care about you, and are willing to help, if you let just one other person into your pain, you at least will have someone with whom you can complain. You cut it in half, but if there are 3 people in on the low, it might cut the pain in thirds. If there are 10, you may be able to dilute the pain by a factor of 10. For sharing out loud. The brilliance and beauty of Alcoholics Anonymous starts with the first step, owning up to your problems and naming them aloud in front of a trusted group of friends. Until the first step happens, no growth, no progress, and no healing can begin. You are all alone in the world, whatever your problem is. You can simply state it out loud. Hello, I'm Richard, and I'm a Lutheran. You are on the royal road to recovery. The power moves towards you and away from the problem. The sliver can be extracted. The ointment can be applied. The healing can begin. If you don't get real, you cannot deal. If you cannot deal, you will not heal. Period. Sanctuary much, ladies and gentlemen. Sharing lows each night gives your children both the tools and the experience of practicing healthy problem-solving skills in the safe context of loving relationships and a trusting family. This isn't about interference, judgment, or intrusion. It's about modeling and practicing active listening, reflection, self-awareness, and healthy, caring communication every night. If you don't take the trash out from time to time, it really starts to stink. Melheim maxim number 26. These simple practices teach children they don't have to hold anything inside. They are not alone. There are people, places, and sacred spaces to get real, to deal, and to heal. A home that instills and installs this nightly sharing of both highs and lows becomes a safe sanctuary where tears, fears, and even failures can be discussed and worked out in confidence and love. The home becomes a grace place where children can be honest in expressing grief, hurts, and disappointments. This simple and intentional faith practice spins a protective cocoon around a child's fragile development, one strand at a time, one low at a time, one night at a time. Focusing away from self. Actively listening to each other's lows allows the listener for a moment to focus on something other than his or her own pain. Imagine raising a teenager who thinks, my mom has problems too, or my dad, he's a human being. Taking turns sharing highs and lows draws you to focus both on yourself and on the needs of others. When you take turns sharing both highs and lows, it teaches you that it's not all about you. Yes, it is about you, but it's not all about you. Look around and look again. We mentioned earlier that peri plus spect means to look around. Re plus spect means to look again. Sharing a low and listening to others open up and own up to their pain leads to both broader perspective and deeper respect. So look around and look again. Other people have problems too. Look around and look again. Some of their problems are actually worse than yours, and yet they seem to be coping. Look around and look again. It may be leaving your pity party and helping others that you will actually help yourself. There's like 13 and a half pages left, so this one's probably going to be about an hour. Okay. The neurology of sharing lows. What happens neurologically when you share a low? Like sharing a high. A message comes from the brain at 100 yards per second. It speeds down at the ends of the neurons. Little bags of neurotransmitter chemicals, aminopeptides, and endorphins are released, and they jump across the synapse and bond to a protein on the other side, all through your body at 100 yards per second. Flashes a painkiller. More free drugs. When you cry and release the pain, the chemical composition in your tears has a higher concentration of dopamine than do your tears when you laugh. Dopamine is a pleasure enhancer and painkiller. A good cry is powerful medicine. Crying also releases tension, cleanses toxic stress hormones from the body, and increases the body's ability to heal. Not bad side effects for a drug that is free and self-dispensable. Have you ever cried so hard you were exhausted? Afterwards, you felt great. Why wouldn't you give those same free drugs, God's good medicine, every night to the people you love? Dealing and healing. Holding negative feelings inside and living with resentment actually hurt the holder more than the holdee. It raises blood pressure, eats away at the lining of the stomach, erodes the immune system, and sets the holder up for a host of maladies. I'm so angry at you, I'll get migraines, ulcers, and hemorrhoids. That'll show you. Doesn't make much sense, does it? Yet that is exactly what many of us do by stuffing our pain inside. Brain and spirituality researchers Dr. Andrew Neuberg and Mark Waldman write, repressing negative feelings can be damaging because unconscious anger and the constant flow of stress hormones and neurochemicals it releases can literally eat you alive, damaging the emotional regulation centers on the brain. Research shows that the best way to deal with negativity is to observe it inwardly without reaction and without judgment. The next step is to consciously reframe each negative feeling and thought by shaping it into a positive, compassionate, and solution-based direction. Building an empathetic brain. Like muscles, whatever areas of the brain you exercise will grow both in strength and capacity over time. As your children practice sharing feelings out loud and learn to listen to the feelings of those around them, they literally grow more brain tissue in the areas that process sympathy, empathy, compassion, and deep care. Sharing a low literally rewires your child's brain. It's not just repeated physical actions that can rewrite our brains, writes Nicholas Carr in The Shallows, What the Internet is Doing to Our Brains. Purely mental activity can also alter our neural circuitry, sometimes in far-reaching ways, Carr also notes. The mind can essentially train itself to be healthy. It can train itself to be sick. The more a sufferer concentrates on his symptoms, the deeper those symptoms are etched into his neural circuits. Although the use of any kind of tool can influence our thoughts and perspectives, the plow changed the outlook of the farmer. The microscope opened new worlds of mental exploration for the scientists. It is our intellectual technologies that have the greatest and most lasting power over what and how we think. Sharing lows is an intellectual technology you have at your disposal. Use it nightly, and you enlarge the capacity for empathy in your child's brain. You will also turn your home into the kind of grace place that teaches, models, and lives healing love every night. Don't go to bed mad. Stay up and fight. Phyllis Diller. Stay up and fight. Sharing both highs and lows teaches people how to forgive. It builds empathy, M plus pathos, meaning in pain. Sympathy, sim plus pathos, meaning with pain. Compassion, com plus passion, meaning suffering along with. And camaraderie. It validates, affirms, and strengthens the other person. It creates, commiserates people who enter each other's pain willingly to share it and bear it with them, rather than people who are dragged into another's pain, kicking and screaming and trying their best to get away from them. Sharing lows builds all these gifts and all that support into the core of the family ritual. Why would you not want to give these gifts to your child tonight and every night? A word of caution: the tired or sensitive child. Be sure to give each low its time, but don't dwell on any one low for too long. Some children, if they are particularly tired and sensitive, may not be able to move beyond their lows to experience that help that God and your family are offering to them. Carrie Hosick, a youth and family ministry director at her church in Eastern Ohio, has been doing highs and lows for years with her children. This former biology and English teacher turned mother turned youth specialist offers a word of warning. We had to stop doing lows in our house for a season until we figured out some stuff. My son, at age 9, sunk into a little depression during Faith 5 when it was time to remember the low of the day. When we could even see the transition on his face as he went from high to low and then slowly spiraled down into the low. He went to bed in tears not long after we started. We talk, pray, reassure, comfort, and feel helpless. Night after night, it was the same low and the same drop. After much frustration, we finally figured out that he was tired at the end of the day, and his low seemed so overwhelming to his tired little brain that he fell apart. When he experienced so much emotion around the same issue every night, he assumed it was a big problem he couldn't fix, and it just got bigger. So we've done a couple of things. First, I started to ask him his highs and lows in an earlier part of the day. Second, we now call our highs shining stars and our lows silver linings. We share lows with the intent of looking for some good God might be bringing out of the bad situation. Third, we share silver linings so that we can finish on a high. Now that the kids have gotten older, Carrie says things have settled down a bit. They do Faith 5 every night at 9 p.m. exactly. It's a fun race to the finish as the kids run around the house to make it on the couch exactly 3 seconds before 9:01. Newspaper woes as personal lows. Oh my gosh. Okay. Newspaper woes as personal lows. On nights when your child can't think of a personal low, you might want to bring a newspaper or magazine into your sharing time. Challenge your children to look outside themselves a moment, look around and look again. Pay respect and respect. You don't need to flip too far into the paper to realize that there are millions of children around the world who are starving, without homes, and trapped in poverty. Look around and look again. There is a world of pain, a world in need, and a world of insatiable greed. Look around and look again. Maybe God is calling your child to be part of the solution with his or her life rather than part of the problem. Look around and look again. That child in the newspaper doesn't have shoes on his or her feet or have a bed to sleep in. And here your children are complaining about having to shop at Walmart for school clothes or drive an old car to school. Look around and look again, this time with the eyes of Christ. The experience of bringing a newspaper into the nightly ritual can grow a self-centered, inward-turning child into a young adult who is both aware and filled with such care that he actually does something for his hurting world with his life. A theology of sharing lows. The Bible calls us again and again to place our problems before one another and God for mutual care and support during hard times. The following is a week's worth of nightly compassion scriptures. As you read and consider this list, what jumps out? Weep with those who weep. Romans 12, verse 5. Bear one another's burdens, and in this way you will fulfill the law of Christ. Galatians 6, verse 2. And be kind to one another, tender-hearted. Ephesians 4, verse 32. Let each of you look not to your own interests, but to the interests of others. Philippians 2, verse 4. Therefore, encourage one another and build each other up, as indeed you are doing. 1 Thessalonians 5, verse 11. Come to me, all you who are weary and are carrying heavy burdens, and I will give you rest. Matthew 11, verse 28. Cast all your anxiety on him because he cares for you. 1 Peter 5, verse 7. Sharing lows teaches your children that they are part of life. Sharing these lows before God and a trusted Christian family or a family of friends shows your children that they are never alone. Admitting disappointments, weakness, fear, and anger out loud is what healthy people do. It reinforces the church as its most elemental level. Bigger than our biggest problems. Okay, admitting lows before God and each other will show your family that God is bigger than the biggest complaints, bigger than their biggest problems, and bigger than their biggest questions. It will show your children that it is okay to verbalize what is on their hearts. It teaches them to hang on and wrestle with God and God's people when answers aren't apparent and pain is unrelenting. Sharing lows in the context of your primary faith community, your family, will give your children experience in looking for and leaning toward God and God's people. Especially in the midst of problems, it teaches them how to get real, to deal, and to heal. It also calls Christ into the center of the problem, discussion, and solution. As Jesus said, for where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, I am there among them. Matthew 18, verse 20. Okay, guys, 8 more pages. All right, part 3, highs and lows for belles and booze. The difference between boys and girls. I need to say a word about the differences between boys and girls when it comes to sharing highs and lows. According to Dr. Lou Ann Brizendine, in the female brain, like girls are born with 11% more tissue that is dedicated to speaking and listening than little boys. Little boys are born with 2.5 times more brain tissue dedicated to sex drive, plus larger areas of the brain are connected to action and aggression. That's one more reason for a pillow fight before you try to talk. If you don't turn part of your learning process into action up front, your boys will turn into aggression later on. Take your pick. Okay, guys, there are a lot of pages left, and we're already at 47 minutes, so I'm going to call it. We will finish part 3 next time. So thanks for listening and watching. Bye.